Hello and welcome to our webinar Securing Digital Banking in a Mobile-First World, DORA 2025. My name is Daniel Hussein and I'll be your moderator for today. Before we get started, a little bit of housekeeping. So this webinar will be recorded and you can consume it once we're finished if you want to see certain sections again or the entire webinar again. I also like to point you to our DORA ebook, which is available online, DORA for Financial Apps, a practical approach to compliance, which is a good read in addition to what we're going to talk about today. The slides which we are presenting today will be available upon request. Just drop us a note in the Q&A section. And also there is a Q&A at the end. We have reserved some time for it. So if you have any questions during this session, drop them in the Q&A and we'll get to it at the end of the webinar. With that, I'd like to introduce you to our speakers, Henning and Sven. Both Henning and Sven are at the forefront with our finance customers. They see our largest customers in banking every day. And Henning has been or is a board member of a Dansk Revision Group, in addition to working with us here at Promon. And Sven is a certified information security officer and an ex-banker from UniCredit. With that, I'd like to hand over to Sven.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel. Thank you for the kind intro and the nice words. Also, a warm welcome from our side. Happy to have you today. So what to expect the next 45 minutes. Henning and I will walk you through the mobile digital banking landscape in 2025, the latest fraud trends, the DORA regulation, which is the key topic of today's webinar, its objectives and controls you need to comply with, a short comparison with the ISO 27K, but also mapping on DORA's RTS underlying requirements with mobile app resiliency and how we finally actually help more than 60% of the largest banks worldwide to comply with that standard. I think what we can observe is an ongoing trend in the market for ages, right? Digital banking is a mobile-first world. So speaking of 2025, the majority of banking users are on mobile. Our smartphone is the primary touch point to a bank. We expect banking from anywhere at any time, right? So the mobile banking offering has become clearly a key differentiator for customers when they decide for a bank, but also as an enabler for banks to realize huge cost-saving opportunities in their traditional retail business with branches, right? So for me, it's no wonder why safeguarding the user's trust among the digital banking experience with the help of strong mobile app security has become one of the top priorities for banks, but also for the regulators. And of course, we have seen major investments in securing those banking experiences over the last decade. And many of these initiatives were driven by regulations such as the well-known EU PSD2, but also the evolving fraud landscape. But still, unfortunately, our latest research study from Promon's security research team is revealing a brutal reality and a brutal result. So we've analyzed the top 100 finance apps in the world, and the majority of the apps are vulnerable to modern threat scenarios and mobile-specific attack vectors. And this is very, very alarming in the context of DORA because mobile app isn't any longer just another front end to your customer, right? It's a critical asset that must be resilient against mobile-specific threats. But Henning, let's share what are our latest observations here in the market.
Yes, well, let's do that, Sven, and thanks. Well, if we take it really simplified, right, you can say that we have these account takeover, device takeover, and you can call the authorized push payment that keeps popping up. What's interesting is, though, while we have been investing, or the industry has been investing for many, many years, like you said before, and really hardening and strengthening the infrastructure, the back end, we also see that the attackers, they're actually doing a lot of activities on the endpoint, so on the mobile app that is out there in the wild, as we also see with these different types fraud types that we see here. So suddenly the attention goes in different ways, and they're being applied differently as well. Some of these insight is being applied on social engineering. Some of them are being applied to build the banking Trojans, malwares, and some of them are really applying completely different new techniques. And maybe we should think, or we should talk a bit about like what do we see from a technical point of view? What are then these techniques? So I did a security research tour last year to the APAC region to understand what they're doing there. We also have spoken with a lot of our bank customers in Europe, and there's this thing about that technology application, or the applied technology, becomes more and more tough. It's an ecosystem where they go deeper and deeper into the lowest layers of the Android platform, as an example, applying techniques that make what our own security research team, they said maybe a year or two ago that, yeah, we need to be careful with this, but it's not a scalable attack. So it's in itself by nature already controlled. But some of those attacks, they have become scalable now. So they are really going deep with the virtualization techniques. They're going deep into the process control of any app, blinding apps and blinding detection mechanisms. But they're also moving into the whole digitalization of KYC processes. So they're applying new AI technologies to do deep fake attacks. So basically allowing us to think that we have a valid biometric validation of an end user as part of an authentication on an onboarding, but in fact, it's actually totally scientific. So they have become strong. There's a smaller group that produces tool for a massively large group of attackers that are attacking banks and their customers. But talking about resilience, right? We have invested, you've showed it beautifully before, Sven, with all the circles, like, this is kind of the bars here, right? We invested a lot, and right now it seems with all these new techniques and with the rise and I would say accelerated rise of mobile, not only being mobile first in banking, but in many areas more and more mobile only. And also as part of my engagement with the MOBE forum here in Europe, we're also discussing a lot more about the e-wallet and all these use cases. So it's becoming a more and more important device. And it's kind of like what a nice little rhino is doing here, right? Attackers, they are finding the way by really focusing more and more on the mobile device. So it makes sense. It has to be more resilient.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for these valuable insights, Henning. And I think this is exactly now that we have all a common picture of what's going on in the world with regards to fraud in mobile banking, that it's quite obvious, right, why the EU followed in response to this with the new DORA regulation. So let's get into it. DORA, the Digital Operational Resilience Act, is actually an EU regulatory that is applicable for the EU financial system. So it affects actually any company, whether you're a bank, an insurance company, or IT service provider to those, that offers services to or within the EU financial system, regardless of where your company is headquartered in the world. So DORA comes with a main goal, which is actually strengthening the IT security and operational resilience to ensure the stability of the EU financial system. And it was, like Henning described just earlier, with the fraud landscape, purely demand-driven by the rising cyber threats, but also inconsistent national approaches on ICT risk management in the finance industry. And that's actually why we see the 4 key objectives here on the left side, which is harmonization of the ICT risk management across the EU in the financial industry, ensure robust incident reporting and response. Of course, the regulation of third-party ICT service provider is being a critical part in the entire supply chain, but overall strengthening and testing of digital operational resilience of all these providers. But I think more relevant for you today, and therefore also a strong focus topic, are the underlying supporting regulatory technical standards to translate DORA's high-level principles more into measurable obligations you need to comply with. So let's do that. So if you walk through the DORA RTS, you can group them into organizational information security measures and technical information security measures. No worries, we will share the presentation afterwards with you anyway, like Daniel mentioned. But you can also access the primary source on the website of the EU Commission. This is all public information, so everyone can read it. If we just walk through it really, really quick, I guess most of you are familiar with certain keywords and aspects mentioned here. Yeah, for instance, such as you need to have risk management in place, like you probably would have already in your information security management system. And of course, you need a couple of policies and procedures to ensure that you do your information security management properly. And it goes on with identity management, access controls, and many much more. And there's the world of technical, pure deep tech IT security, like network security aspects, physical security, vulnerability and patch management, encryption, and many more things. So I think if we map that with something that might be already familiar to you, like the ISO 27000, we see actually a huge overlap, right? So if you probably have a certified ISMS in accordance with ISO 27000, you have actually a good foundation. However, there are a lot of aspects in the RTS, if you walk through them case by case, very detailed, that are not covered by the ISO 27000. And this is since DORA is more tailored to the finance industry, whereas the ISO 27000 is meant to be industry agnostic, right? So we could now spend probably a day in a workshop to walk through all of the new structural elements that you have to build on top of your existing ISMS to fully comply with DORA. But since this is a webinar with a strong focus on mobile app resiliency in the context of DORA, let's focus on the key aspects with regards to that. So if you are, for instance, a critical ICT provider because you offer a white label mobile banking platform to banks, or you are even the bank itself that provides a mobile banking app to its end users, you need to perform a so-called threat-led penetration testing at least every 3 years. And that threat-led penetration test is very different from a generic pen test that you might have obtained during the past years, because it has to be designed in a way that it is realistic and really covering the aspects Henning just mentioned, so the modern threat landscape and the modern threat scenarios, but also that it has to be very specific in terms of focusing on the mobile app itself, focusing on attacks such as malware attacks, reverse engineering, fake apps, or API abuse. So Henning, as we speak already a lot about the TLPT scenarios, what are the aspects we have to consider when we secure a mobile app, and how does that map with the DORA RTS requirements we see?
Yeah, and as you said, Sven, even though the RTS articles, they give more guidance, they're even not that specific. You need to read into them and really spend a lot of time. So, and I would say we are also still learning, Sven, right? Every time we discuss it, we come up with a new insight, a new understanding of different aspects. So what we've tried here at Promon is to put up like let's say a 10-layered security view on what is needed when we talk about mobile banking and mobile apps. So this can come in many shapes and forms. You could probably do a 5-layer or a 7-layer. This is our best way of trying to divide the articles into where is it they seem to play a bigger role. Some of the articles also have multi-purpose, so they cross a bit these different layers. But it's also a good testament of no matter what you do, you need to think about the resiliency and the security of your mobile apps as a layered investment. So it is where you're going to have different layers that have different purposes. So the first 2 layers, they're really about the one half of the articles you talked about before, Sven. So it's more the processes, the operations, and the governance around it. I'm gonna start here on layer 3, which is even before the mobile app. It's what the mobile app depends on. So the backend, where it has all the core logic functions. Every time I might do a transaction, I do something, my app will call the backend to carry through all these transactions. The interesting piece about this layer in some use cases is it's actually separated even more from who owns it. So it might be in the open banking use case that, yeah, I own this, but it's a complete third party that is now responsible of the other layers, but you might still want to have an opinion about it and have that as a conversation with that third party that you're working together with. But what's really important is what you probably have done the most already. Also, where we started the session, it's about the APIs, it's about microservices. It's really about also making sure you are closing down what is really production and what is really test. Make sure you have a clean separations between these different use cases of the technology in the backend and how that is being made available for the next layers. So if we move up a bit through the layers now and talk a bit about the network communication security, then now we start including both the backend and the mobile part, so the app. And this is really about not only making sure you have the certifications in place, maybe you do things like TLS and SSL pinning, like topics you might be familiar with, and if not, we're happy to go further into that in another conversation. But you can sum all this really to make sure that you think about your data and think about who accesses your backend in a controlled and secure way. So one thing is you want to secure your data, maybe you, or not even maybe, you should and you must encrypt the data in a safe way. But what is really important is also these days to maybe think more about the API pieces. Should they be more experienced as APIs, as some call it today? So you have an API that is specifically purposed for mobile access. If you do that, you also have the control in the communication between the API and the app to say, okay, I want to make sure it's only my app who connects. It's not some third-party attacker who now is trying to get access to my API and do something. I actually know it is a valid app and it's attested or it's authenticated on top of the users being authenticated as well. So if we move further up the stack into the device, so now we look at the device, and there is a lot you can do on the device, and it's really important to do the best efforts. And here I really want to emphasize the best efforts, because this is an uneven play. But you need to do whatever you can to make sure you try to run on uncompromised devices. The challenge, though, in this game is that we are always one step behind. Because when you come to a device, you come to the device as an app, meaning that the attacker or the user also sometimes, if it's a user that's just trying to fraud, it might not be an attacker that is doing something against one of your clients, but whoever it is, they have the device up front and they can make changes to the device so that when the app tries to understand the environment, it might not always get the same response. So it might get, let's say, spoofed data back. So it's really important when we look at the device and the application layer in a moment, you really think about the zero trust strategy here. This is also what we have applied. So, okay, we need to really make sure we do all efforts possible. So when we fulfill the articles here, it's with a zero trust mindset. The app has to be able to run on the environment, even though it might be compromised. But we still need to apply this this first layer of defense on the device, trying to understand if it's rooted or jailbroken, and do the best detections and protections we can here. Let's do another step up the staircase here and look a bit at application code protection. This is one of the more, let's say, classical disciplines in application security. It's really about you're trying to protect your code either because you have components in the code you don't want to share with competitors, to be honest. It could be not only attackers trying to get for the money, it could also be some who just want to know how does this work. It can be code we want to protect so that it's complicated or impossible for attackers to try and inject themselves with code that makes the app run slightly different than what it's intended to do. So that is typically what you call hooking. So the whole concept of anti-tampering, we want to obfuscate and protect the code so that the app is running with integrity as it's intended. This is a very important layer, and also it has a lot of different topics we could dive into from a technical point of view, but it's really about thinking when my app is statically there, is it protected? When my app is running, is the code also protected? So even within this one box, there's more layers. There's the protecting code that is there, but when it's put into memory, it's different. Then we still need to protect it. So it's a whole discipline. We also might know as runtime application self-protection. So you need a lot of intelligence here. And this is also when we later on go a bit back to like how to do this, is what can sometimes mess up the, let's say, the happiness of the developers in your company if they need to do too much with their code to make this safe. If you climb up to step 7 here, we have data protection. And data protection is another, let's say, complicated aspect, because there are different types of data. First of all, you have your customer data, you have your transaction data, and it's really important to make sure they're safe, they're encrypted when they are on the device, so when they are there statically or at rest. When the data they're being used, so they're being thrown into memory, it shouldn't be possible for attackers to just dump memory and get data that way. But data is also being shared with the user. So there's a user interface we come to later on. There's also an element of data protection that falls into this category. And finally, you have data that is something the users will never know, but it's important for you as a company. So you need to understand you have secrets, as you call them, in the code. We'll go a bit back to that later as well. But this is really the secrets that the attackers, they really would like to go for. And they will try and go and find that data without you actually knowing, with the existing detection mechanisms we have, because they can go for those data on the mobile app, on their own device, in the basement, cutting off network connection and everything. So this is really about resiliency, about the data and encryption, and preparing for the future as well, to be honest. Probably a lot of you have looked into the whole post-quantum conversations. How do I protect my data and encrypt them in a way so that even if I collect the data now in 4 or 5 years, I'm not going to be able to read them when the first quantum computer might be out there. But let's move on up to the authentication and session management. Again, we could unfold that. There's one piece I just want to double down on, which I can see becomes more and more important, and that is the biometrics part. So when I log into the app and authenticate myself, I might use a thumb, or I might use my face recognition. So, and we really see a big investment from the attacking ecosystem out there, the threat actors working more and more with AI, trying to create fake biometrics and inject themselves. So we need to become smart, everybody, on how we think about this. And there are some good guidance just to make sure we remember that in the RTS articles. Let's move up to the final 2 ones, Sven, and have a look at the user interface protection and the monitoring. And I think the only thing I want to say about the user interface is this security layer is especially important also when we think about maybe one of the larger scale attack vectors, like the social engineering, where it might actually start with me not doing anything with the app initially, but I just call your customers, call the bank customers, and then I try to convince them. But often it's combined with I try also to get access to see what's happening. So this is where we are not in the code, something else is being put on the device, and it might try to do screen shots or screen sharing on different ways, or it could be that we try and inject fake keyboards to capture the keystrokes. So this is really a lot about trying to think the outside around the app. How can we make sure it's only the right interfaces that are being used, and that you can apply policies on the certain user interfaces that you're not allowed to do screen sharing with, and the system will help you make sure everything is blacked out even if somebody is trying to do that. And it also is tied a bit together with the final and top layer, which is all about monitoring and observability. And I think observability on mobile apps is something that is exploding these days. You've seen it a lot from like fraud detection in the retail industry, and you've seen it in the data streaming industry. There's been a lot like happening there to try and monitor what's happening. but it's seldom that you have very strong data points specifically from your app and from the mobile device. So this is an area that is being invested in heavily also at Promon to make sure that we get as many data, we make them available in a format that is also kind of indicated by the DORA articles here. So observability and monitoring is going to be more and more important because it will reveal a lot on what are the new trends, what's happening. But we need to remind ourselves why this is kind of also the last layer. It's extremely important, but it will always be reactive. So it's not really going to prevent anything, but it will give us a lot of insight and it will help us improve for the future. And this is why this is very, very important. So this is kind of walking through 8 of the 10 layers. And as Sven said, we're sharing the slide with you afterwards. So have a look at it. Maybe you even have feedback on you say, wouldn't this article also be relevant in this layer? We are very, very open and happy to have that kind of conversation with you as well, if you have good input for us here.
Yeah, thank you, Henning. Amazing. I think a lot of defense initiatives now, right, to implement. And this is exactly what we need, right? So if you walk through the articles and if you read them article by article, you get a feeling of what to do, but not really how to do it, right? So thanks for sharing, Henning. I think this is extremely valuable. Right now, at the moment, the EU Commission and industry is sitting down together, and we could expect that we will get even more concrete guidelines on the articles itself, yeah, because it's not really specific at the moment. So and you see, still it's not pretty mature and work in progress. But intermediately, fortunately, if you're looking for a baseline to perform your mobile application vulnerability assessments on a weekly basis with reporting or the TLPT, you should for sure consider the worldwide gold standard for mobile application security itself. That has been developed by OWASP, which is a non-profit organization with more than 40,000 AppSec experts worldwide contributing to that. And it contains, as we can see it here in the picture in the illustration, a lot of different mobile app security categories with concrete objectives and measures that can be assessed. So that standard OWASP MASVS is a must for any finance app, and it is designed to be used as a flexible threat model. So it can be used generic for any app, but it's following a 3-line of defense approach, dependent on your app functionality and use case. And it comes with clear recommendations, so it does for finance apps. And if you run one, you have to consider the objectives and controls in the resiliency chapter mentioned. So let's have a quick look at them. And it's pretty much also an overlap in what Henning already said, right? Previously. So you need to ensure that your app checks if the device is secure. Yeah. So you need to check up for has the device been compromised, or is the OS been compromised? Because then you can't rely anymore on the inbuilt security features, right? You also need to have strong prevention against tampering attempts or anything with regards to static analysis of your code. Yeah, to make it as hard as possible that somebody would easily find implemented security and secrets, yeah, or intellectual property, like Henning mentioned earlier. And then last but not least, of course, which is from my point of view, the most important, strong protection against dynamic reverse engineering, where it's really all about to figure out how you have implemented certain security features and the application logic itself in order to modify it at runtime. But don't worry too much about it. That's why we're here. So we are more than happy to help you and to assist you, and feel free to request an app resiliency assessment. Our experts are happy to help. But Henning, would you please explain why OWASP has defined these resiliency objectives from your point of view, and also how we help finally many companies in the world, actually the largest logos in the world, to implement them easily?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. I'll try and do it in a very simple way. And I think also if you go and have a look at OWASP, you'll find very specific like help and guidelines. So that's why I like that standard myself a lot. But But think about like all the investment you've done so far. It's really about making sure the backend and the services, the microservices, like the machine room of the whole mobile banking is really running in a safe and resilient way. What's very interesting though, when we do this and we hand out an app, I downloaded it from App Store or from Google Play. But basically what you're doing, you're actually poking a hole in that whole defense wall you build up, this really resilient interface, because now the intention is that that app, it has to communicate. So it should get access easily through this interesting protection interface. And that is all good. The challenge with that is to make it work, you actually need to put you need to put application data and infrastructure data, you can call it, into the app. So there will be secrets. It's not about the customer data now. This is about data that you own. It's something that's important for you and your security. And that's like the API endpoints, API keys, and it can be protocol inside. And there could be a lot of interesting data points I can pull out as a threat actor. And if I do that, now I can act, and I can do it without having to access your backend. So that means I can do it without anybody really detecting that anything is happening. There's no anomaly traffic or anything happening. So I can do it in silence and calmness in my own pace. But when I have it, now I can use that insight to set up maybe scanning services that are now monitoring your whole interface. And why I would do that is I would do that because now I'm going to monitor to see when the next 0-day vulnerability appears, will you patch it fast enough? And because I'm already ready, I'm already monitoring, and I know what to do, I will be able to act very, very fast as an attacker. So most companies will really find it difficult to keep pace with this. So it's just adding a diminishment of your security layers in the backend because we're sharing this. That is why I really like these levels on the mobile app part. So in the mobile app, what OVAS does with the mass VS is to say, you need this level 1 and 2, but you need the safe. You need to think resiliency. You really need to make sure that those secrets, they're being hidden away best possible for the attacker so they don't get this as well. So that is kind of why I really like a very practical approach on OVAS, and especially the mobile attention you get on mass VS. But what do we then do? So this is complicated stuff, to be honest. And I think also many companies have been struggling with this, and you have maybe big teams who are really working with the security of your code. But maybe I want to share a very simplified story around what is it we do with these plus 60% of the leading banks out here. And I'm not going to go into the protection features we have and how we are making the app resilient, because I think one of the pieces that our customers are very happy with is the approach. So first of all your developers, they can develop the best user experience possible. They can implement all the complicated processes that needs to be managed mobile app with a backend to make fast and speedy and secure transactions, or I can make decisions, or I might even collaborate with the people within the bank through the app. So all that is done, and you compile your app. Now, we have not interfered with the developers' efficiency, creating great apps. But at this time, you would then come up with your decision around, you could say, your security posture of the app when it's out there in the wild, when it's on these stores and somebody's pulling it down to the phone. And the way you do that is you make the choices in a configuration file that we share with you. And when you made that choice, a combination of your configuration, so what kind of security posture do you want to have, the latest version of Shield, whenever we release a new version of the whole security package, you just run this with our integrator tool, and it will automatically take your compiled app, pull it apart, analyze the code, inject the security, all the places where it needs to be done according to a posture configuration file. It will even inject pieces that if you say on these certain checks, I want the app to close and shut down because now we're in a high-risk environment, it will also make the app add code to the app so that will happen. And when it's done, it will then produce the final app for you that is ready to be published to the Apple Store or Google Play, but now in a protected, resilient, hardened way. So this is something, because it has this structure and it post-compile. It's something that can run automatically and integrated with your CI/CD without really interfering with your developer experience in your development team. This is also why most of our customers, they are able to say, yeah, but I want to follow the upgrades that you provide with the frequency that you provide, Promon, because if you have to interfere with the developers, it's very easy once in a while to maybe jump a release or two because it's cumbersome. What's also important is with this is going back to what Sven talked about earlier, that DORA actually advise and indicates that you need to do frequent pen test. You need to do frequent validation. You need to do frequent observation of what's the outcome of the security you're doing. So this automation and seamless and fast way of deploying security in your app, that is a big factor in why the banks, they continue working with us.
Yeah. And Henning, I like it a lot, the discussion we are having right now. So because actually what you said and thinking of the slide we have previously, a mobile app is way, way more than just the front end, right? So it actually contains a lot of sensitive functionality and secrets and information's worth being protected, right? And often I hear the myth of, yeah, but is it then a project that takes us months, yeah, and slowing down our entire development time and go to market? And if I understood you correctly, that is not the case, right? It
No.
doesn't have to be like that.
And there's the other aspect, like, to be honest, in most app development organizations, you don't really write all your code yourself. So you also include a lot of third-party components. Some of them are open source, some of them are maybe paid for SDKs, but they are part of your risk profile. So it's also important that if you do this step and you're not relying on injecting it in the code here and there, but you can say we do a holistical view, post-compile, we have the app with all third-party components, everything in it, Shield, config file, and Promon integrated, they don't care who wrote the code. It will take everything because everything is there already. Even if you have like tests, so, to be honest, sometimes developers, they're not cleaning all up when they're done. It's not only production code. Sometimes you have test residual code in it there, but even that is being embraced. So it's very important to make this as resilient as possible and try and remove as many opportunities for making mistakes, right?
Yeah. And I thanks for sharing. I also often hear the myth of okay, is then anything we did before obsolete? Yeah, if we harden the application, yeah, like what about what we have implemented so far?
Yeah, but that's all good, and you also still need to think about good coding practices, and you still need to also do, like, and DORA and the articles related to this is, so they're also describing the guidelines on make sure when you have test and production and all these kind of environment in your backend, make sure they're separated. And it's all about really making sure if you inject third-party components that also comes with some sort of protection mechanisms, that everything is compliant. And we keep investing, and it's not everybody who is, let's say follow the book and try and only protect what they do. Some of these components, some of these protections tools, they go a bit broader. And the risk with that is that it's interfering with the protection of the holistical app view, meaning that you might find some cases where you need to reduce the overall security layer because you have different combinations of security components and they don't work that well together. And the only way you can make them work together is you reduce something, either in the SDK or in the mobile app piece. So what we are trying to do here is we're really trying to invest in ways of building compatibility services. So no matter what third-party components is in there, it's not always that easy, but we do our best effort to make sure we don't want to lower the bar. If your configuration file states that you have a certain security posture ambition, that is the one we need to try and deliver for.
Fully agree. So the time has come, I would say, to say thanks for your attention, and I'm handing over again to Daniel. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sven and Henning, for the great presentation. Just a reminder to everyone, we are open for Q&A now. Please, if you have any questions, please drop them in the Q&A field. And we already got two. I think the first one is for Henning. I'll read it out. I see that SSL pinning is often mentioned as a solution against man-in-the-middle attacks when mutual TLS would actually be safer. Do you see a reason why mutual TLS is not as popular as SSL pinning today?
The very simple answer is no. So it's a good point. And also when you do it, there are also many myths around. So what about how much should I do and invest in protecting my key, right? As long as you use a public key, it's not the big thing here either, right? So I think the most important piece is that you think about the strategy and how do you want to protect the data in transit, and then there are many ways of achieving that. And I think I even don't have statistics on it, but I think maybe it's just because you're used to, and then many they use SSL pinning for this.
Okay, thank you. And we have a second one. I think it's also for you, Henning. Ideally, we want to publish mobile apps without embedded sensitive data. Do you have recommendations on how to achieve that today on Android and iOS?
Yeah, so it's gonna be difficult to do it completely without, because some of these sensitive data you actually want to use them. So I think it's more about really making sure you have a good strategy on what do you do with that. So often you tend to move into this aspect of white box crypto sometimes, that you play with this fantastic magical tool, but it can be really complicated, right? So even before I joined Promon, we had some really great people who thought, hey, why not make it easy? So what we decided was, let's make it like any other database interface. You can say, I need to save this, and when I need it, I'll say, hey, now I need the secret data. So I think maybe it's not that much about trying not to have secret data, but it's more about what's going to be your strategy on how do you make sure the secret data, they are safe at rest. So when the app is just there, and how do you make sure when the secrets they're being used, they always set at runtime, so they cannot out memory, as an example. So I think that's probably more the way to view it than really try and prevent it. And that could be, again, there could be different tactics on how you do this. It also depends on your skill set. If you have really skilled people that are used to working with white box tools, maybe that's the way to go. I hope that answered the question.
Yes, thank you, Henning. And we just got another one. How do we submit our app for testing by Promon? I don't know if Sven or Henning, who would like to take this one.
Yeah, I can jump on. So pretty much straightforward. Just visit our website or send us an email, yeah, and book a meeting with us. And our experts are more than happy to set up a call with you and analyze your app and perform the resiliency assessment and walk through the report together with you, yeah, and take it from there.
And typically, you actually already have submitted your app, right? It's out there in some store. So we just need to know what app is it. So maybe, let us get a link to what app is it on Android, what app is it on iOS, so the Google Play and the App Store. Then we should be good to go.
Okay, thank you. And we got another one for Sven, which is, we are a US-based bank. How relevant is this for us?
It will affect you. Yeah, if you run business in the EU, if you offer services and solutions into the EU financial sector and system, you are affected by DORA. Yeah, no matter of where you're headquartered and where your company is based in the world.
Yeah. Thank you. I think that concludes our session for today. Again, a big thank you to Sven and Henning for being our speakers today and providing your expertise. And to the audience, as I said, we'll make the recording available, and we're looking to forward to see you in our next webinar.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.